and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for your valuable time. I promise that we'll all try to make the next 45 minutes a good investment of your time. Hello, my name is David Pope. I'm the Chief Operating Officer over at DeepDive. And today we are going to be answering this question: can AI help meet the challenges of high net worth enhanced due diligence? So to answer this question, we will be going back to first principles. We'll be examining just what are the challenges when running EDD on high net worth individuals. We'll be examining where AI can help, and we'll also be listening to some experts to understand where AI's strengths end and human tradecraft takes over. And of course, we want to be taking your questions as we go through the webinar today. To throw questions at our esteemed panelists, there is a little question mark icon in the GoToWebinar interface. Please hit on that, send us your questions, and we will take questions at the end. So on to our esteemed panelists, bringing some serious brain power today to help ponder this very current topic. We're joined by the experts from Pelican Worldwide, a leading intelligence and investigations boutique, and by Don Blackburn, the Chief Product Officer at DeepDive. So let's get some introductions going. Nicholas and Sophia, could you please introduce yourselves?
David, hi there. Thank you very much for that introduction. My name is Nicholas Weatherly. I am the founder and managing director of Pelican Worldwide. I have been working in the field of corporate investigations and intelligence for 25 years, so I've had some pretty good experience in gathering information.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sophia, and I'm a Director of Research at Pelican Worldwide. I have been working with Nick for the past 6 years, having graduated from the Studies Department at King's College London, and my specialty include research in former Soviet Union and the MENA region.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm Dominic. Sorry, I was running ahead. I'm Dominic. I'm Chief Product Officer at DeepDive, but I've been with 192.com since 1996 when we started, and even before that, been working in data since about 1991, and been involved in 2 identity businesses, and also selling a product called Who You Investigate, which we created to GB, which took over their Connexus product. So we've been doing, spinning up businesses for the last 15 years, all around people data and business data.
All right, well, lovely. Thank you for that, guys. So first of all, let's just introduce DeepDive and talk a little bit about why we wanted to put on this webinar today. So DeepDive is an AI-powered platform to make investigations, enhanced due diligence, fin crime investigations quicker, but also to use lots of technology, including AI, to broaden the horizon when it comes to EDD. Essentially, DeepDive finds all the publicly available information about a person and compiles that, cross-references it, checks it, analyzes it, and builds it into a structured intelligence report that clients can then zip through in a fraction of the time it would have taken them to do all the research themselves manually, and use the chatbot to interrogate the subject matter that we've built into the DeepDive report. Why did we put on this webinar? Well, because there's some fairly serious problems when it comes to EDD, insofar as MLROs, they want to know everything. Compliance teams want to be able to read all the source material, but they don't humanly have all the time available in the world to do that. And of course, using technology to analyze lots of data and unveil patterns is a practice that's tailor-made for computers and for AI. And so we're here to bring fresh perspective to enhanced due diligence. We're also here to reduce false positives when one is gathering lots of information for EDD, and to help companies embrace AI. So without stealing Dom's thunder, that's exactly who DeepDive is, and that's why we wanted to bring this content to you today. Before we go into the subject matter, Nicholas and Sophia, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about Pelican Worldwide.
Yeah, so I set up Pelican Worldwide in 2010, having worked for 10 years previously in investigations and intelligence. I set it up in 2010, and since that time, we have conducted multiple investigations and background checks and due diligence research into companies and individuals all around the world for varying reasons. For the purposes of today, we're going to focus very much on the compliance, KYC, and AML type of searches, so that because that's really sort of what deep dive focuses on, is on the individual. So we have, we've looked at multiple jurisdictions, looking at individuals, and we can use that from the Paris link behind our desk in London, then reaching out through various databases and sources that we have dotted around the world. So that's really sort of what Pelican Worldwide does.
Lovely. So thank you for that. Well, let's get into the challenges then of doing EDD on high net worth individuals. So Sophia or Nick, maybe you could kick us off to see what these challenges are.
Yes, of course. So broadly, when looking at an ultra high net worth individual, a researcher is faced with a problem of having too much information. For example, if we're looking at a very successful businessman or businesswoman with a detailed career track record, with a big media footprint, it is occasionally difficult to narrow down, to streamline the amount of information, to do the fact checking, to make sure that all the facts are correct and unbiased, and condensing that information to a report which is easily used by the end client. Now, on the other side of the spectrum are individuals who have accumulated a substantial net worth, who are very private, and who prefer to flying under the radar, not necessarily for bad reasons, but because they are just very private individuals. Some of them have young families, so it's just their modus operandi. Now, for a due diligence professional, the latter profile is perhaps more challenging because it is about finding the correct factual base and making sure you pull the right strand of information to uncover the corporate structure. Usually in these sort of scenarios, opaque, complicated jurisdictions are involved. Again, not necessarily for malign reasons, just because this is the preferred structure of the principal. And on top of that, we have occasional challenges such as foreign languages, especially Asian languages, Cyrillic languages, that can pose a challenge to online research.
Yeah, and just adding to that, I've just got two more points, which is quite interesting, which we probably take a little bit for granted. One is all our clients who come to us can do a Google search. Everybody can do a Google search. So even though it sounds a very basic search to do, we will still do a Google search to see what there is. But obviously, we then have access to our proprietary databases that we will then go and get a larger read. And then the final thing, which is difficult, is the spelling of names. If you're looking at somebody in the Middle East or in the Far East, some Asian names can be very complex and very difficult to narrow down. And actually, I know we're going to go into the ins and outs of deep dive, but when we were testing the system recently, it was able to flag up quite a crucial piece of data on an individual we were looking at that our normal searches of Google and proprietary databases did not flag up. So that was really helpful, and that's where deep dive has certainly started to help us.
That's good to know. Sorry, Dom, after you.
I was going to say, I agree with those points. The two challenges are about lots of information or very hard to find information. Names in particular. Common names, finding information about John Smith, or where you've got relatively little information to start with, is very, very difficult. Or a David Cameron, etc. Because you can have lots and lots of information about other people, and being able to find the information about the person that you want does require a lot of searching. And then the other thing is being able to read thousands of pages about somebody and put it into a report with source accuracy and detailed summaries is a really difficult thing when there's a lot of information about somebody, and it becomes very complex to be able to hold it all together.
What about languages and jurisdictions? How much of that is a hurdle?
So do you want to start? Or?
Yes, of course. So specifically with jurisdictions, we in the UK are quite lucky because everything is, well, most of the information is digitized and accessible via a click and perhaps a small fee. Now, in a lot of other more obscure jurisdictions, some databases are simply not digitized. So in our line of work, elaborate online research tools are quite crucial, but also our role as investigators sort of transcend those online tools. So we often go to obscure registries that are analog, and we have to wait for a few months in order to get that crucial piece of information. So that is, I think, the broad challenge of online research versus the old school manual sort of analog research.
Just to add into that, and Sophia's totally right, that when you do have, you could be looking at Chinese, Russian, Arabic language, and we do have a few techniques which in the research world are fairly common uses to try and leapfrog and give you that advantage. So we do there are some limitations, but we do have some techniques that can help us. And again, bigging up DeepDive, that's certainly been helpful in doing some of the generating some of the reports we have done with you guys.
I think the other thing as well about jurisdictions and language is that there's so many different regulations all around the world as to what data is public, what data isn't public. Some things may cost money, some things you might need a national to do to be able to go and get company registered data in certain countries. You have to have an ID card to be able to go and get it. So what DeepDive does is it looks for reliable sources which aren't necessarily a very difficult piece of information to find. So we can run reports on somebody in the Cayman Islands, and we'll pick out lots and lots of stories which we can corroborate and which can give you a very comfortable factual information corroborated by many sources, which may not be an official source, but still gives you the information that you would find behind these official sources.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I guess a question to the professionals. Sophia, Nicholas, how do you start your investigation? What's your starting point look like?
Look, I think we all have our go-to sources where we like to get an immediate read on somebody, and it could be anything from Companies House, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Nexus Search. There are a number of places where one wants to go to get an idea. We have the experience of doing this over many years, be able to filter information quite quickly. When we've been testing DeepDive, that has also provided a really helpful read because of the way you generate your reports. And I'm not going to take away from Don's presentation shortly, but the way you present the data and using that as a starting point, particularly when you're up against it time-wise, is really helpful. So we're always up against it on time, but it can help to map out and plan how you might approach an assignment, how you're going to put together a proposal, and to give yourself that sort of that edge when speaking to the client as well.
Okay, lovely. Well, let's see what our lovely audience thinks. So we're going to trigger a poll via GoToWebinar now. So if you bear with me for 1 second, you'll see the poll come up on your screen in just 1 second. And what we'd like to understand from our viewers today are what are the biggest challenges with EDD on high net worths. So for those people at home or in the office, could you please do some clicks for us and let us know where you see your biggest challenges. Okay, right. So I'm just going to talk through the results we've got. In first place, let's have a look. So the biggest challenge people are saying, hopefully you can see these results on the screen, is complex multi-jurisdictional structures, and that seems to be the biggest challenge. So I guess question to Don, how does one make sense of the morass of data coming in from different jurisdictions in different structures in different formats?
So this is the part where entity resolution and understanding of context becomes really, really important. So the way that DeepDive is built is all around understanding who somebody is in the context of all around whether those sources are Chinese, Russian, Thai, Vietnamese, Ethiopian. It really doesn't matter. What is important is we extract all the statements from all of the different sources and then build that into a usable database which gets summarized, and we can interrogate it in many different ways to deliver a complete view. And that will be corporations, it will be media, it will be beneficial ownership data. It's anything that we can find on the web. But we build it into a database structure using large language models to provide outputs, which means that we can answer any question based on that body of knowledge. So rather than you having these big charts or this long lists of data or very complex Excel sheets or whatever it is that you use to handle lots of related database, we can just deliver that in whatever structure you want. And we'll show you some of the report styles that we have.
Well, I think that's a nice segue into our next segment. So, Dom, I'll share the screen if you do the honours of doing a little quick demo of DeepDive for us.
No problem.
Okay, we can see your screen. That's good.
Okay, I need to make it full screen. 1 second. Sorry, give me 1 second. Sorry, let's do that again. This way. Okay, so what we just clear the search. Sorry. So this is a DeepDive product. This is my homepage. What it shows you is on the homepage your previous searches and investigations that you've done. We can do a new investigation, and to do a new investigation, we can fill out a form. So I'm going to be using Robert Maxwell as a test case today. So I can fill out Robert Maxwell, and I can add things like aliases, known associates, related businesses, keywords, countries, etc. What we have, which makes life a lot easier, is an ability. So this is the Encyclopedia Britannica. We can copy all the information from that page and drop it into what we call the search assistant. And the search assistant will populate the search form so you don't have to, with all the information. That could be a document that you have from a customer, it could be a LinkedIn page, it could be an internal database, it could be any sort of content. And what we do is we analyze it and we build our search criteria based on the information in that document. So if I accept that, you will see now that we've populated the page with all the variations of his name. So Romanian Czech originally. We have all the companies that he's connected to, and it's automatically populated the keywords. Now, if I wanted to say, look for him as I know he is based in, let's say China, and I'm also going to add another country. Let's do it next hour. I can say translate all of those keywords, and what the system will do We'll translate them into Chinese and Arabic. And so when I click search, it will fire off combinations of all the name variations, all of the Arabic variations, all the Chinese variations, keywords, etc., to multiple search engines. I've actually done that already. So if I show you what a progress page looks like, this has been searching for Robert Maxwell with his 15 businesses and associations. What the system does is it creates a series of searches. So it creates 104 searches. These are sent to Google, to DuckDuckGo, to Yandex, to Baidu, to Naver, and we collect as many pages as we can from every search, deduplicate them and get rid of the relevant pages and build a certain number of pages to be processed. We then run checks against LexisNexis, so we do compliance checks, and what we do is we just send the names, so we get all related matches back. So if you did a search for David Cameron, we would get 123 matches. The system will then take all of that information and it downloads and extracts all the text from the data and does something which we call entity extraction, which is basically looking at keywords on the page, whether it's people or businesses or other types of keywords, to use to work out if that page is about what one Robert Maxwell or another Robert Maxwell. And this is how we do it. So we take those pages in, we look for duplicates, and initially we find 3,118 Robert Maxwells in the sources. Through various iterations, we reduce it down to 206 people called Robert Maxwell. And then we work out which of those 206 Robert Maxwells match your target search. Once we've done that, we then take all the pages that are in that Robert Maxwell's entity, and we read them all through large language models. We read them in their original language because it's very important, rather than translation, that you read with context and you read the page and understand the page. And we extract statements. Those statements are then merged together into what we call a body of knowledge, and we create a report. And the reports I'm going to show you now are all different styles. We have a EDD style report, which tells us about Ian Maxwell, or Robert Maxwell as he's known. So legal issues, no sanctions, financial issues, £526 million pension fraud, former MP, and extreme adverse media. We can also switch to a timeline. So here we can see a timeline from when he was born through the Second World War, and post-war activities, and then became a member of Parliament, and soon he buys a mirror, and so on, and it could go all the way through. At the top of the reports, we have a long report, short reporter, and the timeline. At the top of these, we have a 3-line summary about who the person is, and 6 sections which will tell you about media, criminal, financial, PEPs and sanctions information. If I go to the long report to start with, so the long report goes into a huge amount of detail about Robert Maxwell. So you'll see his early life, his educational background, his military service. What you're seeing next to each statement is a number and an icon. The number and the icon represent the sources for that page, for that statement. I can click on that and, oops. Sorry, let's just do that. When we click on the source, it will show you the name of the source, detailed information on why we think the source is relevant. It's medium confidence and reliability, and I can skip through those 251 sources and click through to a link if I wanted to. Also, if you want more information about the source, we go through and analyze the quality of the sources to look at things like, is it the depth of knowledge of the source, the plausibility of the claims, are there logical fallacies or emotional language, and then we also have an explanation as to why we think it is Robert Maxwell that you're looking at and not a different Robert Maxwell. So everything in the reports can be traced right back to the source information. My favorite part of the system is the chatbot. So if I jump down to the chatbot, what you will see is I've asked some questions already, but there's all sorts of questions you can ask. So, for example, I can say, is he a pet? And I've asked it to show, because obviously he's dead, I've asked it to show his pet over decades. So it's a simple question. This system comes back with detailed information of his pet status in the 40s, his pet status in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and you can interact with the data. So the idea of this is in our database, we have 1,495 pages we've read. When I look at the EDD report, for example, we go back to the EDD report, we summarize everything very simply. And there's a huge depth of data sitting behind that, which you can access using the chatbot. So if you want to ask for more information about a court case or something like this, you can use the chatbot. But within here, we will summarize things. So if you want to look at legal issues he's gone through, we give you summaries of them. But then further down, you can look into more detail into things like his pension fraud details or Pelican Express scandal. If I look at media, for example, here we can see statistics and characterizations and themes, which allow you to look at how he's changed over time, what the scandals were, and also the post-mortem media's impact after he died. So all of this system is all about, we create a database about somebody from any source we can find online, and we can also use structured data such as LexisNexis as part of that source and build a report which can be customized, which can be summaries, timelines, long reports, but also you have the chatbot so you can ask your own questions.
We've got a question actually. I know we said we'd take questions at the end, but someone's just thrown a question in, and they're asking how you score the sources that are being presented.
So we score the sources in all sorts of different ways. So if I come back to the long report, we score sources and statements. So we actually score, so let me have a look at one of these. So this is, well, it says official. Well, it looks like it's The Guardian. If I click on the link, it is actually a published version of the DTI investigation into Robert Maxwell and the Mirror Group, which is a government document. So, and we trust The Guardian as a publisher. So if I come back here, this is a high confidence and it's a reliability 9. The way we score it is we look at the document source type, we look at relevancy, we look at URL reputations, does it mention the target person? Are there lots of other people referenced? Is it a list? Does it have primary sources? Does it have depth of knowledge? So all of these are used, and then when we build this body of knowledge, all of these statements that go into the body of knowledge are also scored as based on, so this sentence here, not a person who can be relied upon, that has a very high confidence level because it'll have 45 public sources all corroborating it. So not only do we use source analysis, but we also, at the statement level, look at corroboration and quality of the sources that are saying that statement. Does that answer the question? Dave, are you happy?
I'm happy. I'll see if they come back to the platform and say yes. But if anyone else has got any questions, please do throw them at us.
I was going to say, so I was looking at some of the source pages that we used for Robert Maxwell. This is one of the Russian pages. There's another Russian page that was one of the sources. We also have a Czech page and a German page. They all come up because Robert Maxwell, as an English name, appears as the English version, even in the Russian documents. So, and the company names are the same, but then we read them in Russian to work out if they are about the Robert Maxwell that we're looking for. So that is deep dive, a quick run through deep dive. If anyone's got any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that, Don. So thanks for that demo. Let's now go to our next section, and we are in fact going to go to a poll, and we're going to ask our viewers if they've started using AI to help with EDD yet. So let me trigger the poll, and we'll see what the answers are. Okay, so have you started using AI to help with EDD yet? The answer is no. The answer could be yes, generalist tools such as ChatGPT, or yes, but we struggle with the depth of generalist AI tools. So do please give us your votes. Okay, and I can convincingly tell you that the answer is overwhelmingly no. Oh, sorry, tell a lie. The numbers have changed. More people have voted. Okay, so I should be sharing the results on the screen now. Can you see the results? Okay, so I'll read them out just in case. So a third of recipients are saying no. 2/3 of recipients are saying yes, we've started to use generalist AI tools such as ChatGPT. So it's very interesting. Thank you for that data. Right, let's get back to today's subject matter. Coming back to the experts in the room, Sophia, Nicholas, what did you think of AI before you kind of started working with Deep Dive? What was your view on AI in terms of the art of the possible?
I must be honest with you, I was always quite skeptical because I was trying to work out how, I suppose that for us, the great concern was, is AI going to replace the work that we do? And, I may be jumping ahead on some of the questions, and the work we've done with you guys and the research and examining this in far greater detail, I think that that AI will certainly add a very good layer to our research processes and procedures. Will it replace it? The answer, I think, is fair to say is it won't entirely replace us. You still need to have the human element involved because you need to be able to filter through fact and fiction. There are still a number of registries around the world which you can't get behind because they haven't been digitized. And it's just, there is so much information out there that you can't get behind everything. But I certainly think that AI is a really good, and Deep Dive is a very good add-on to the work that we do. And for that, it's part of our standard procedure now.
Yeah, also, sorry, Sophia, after you.
When it comes to enhanced due diligence, especially for ultra-high net worth individuals, it is quite often that the best reports are a combination of precise online research and human source inquiries. And human source inquiries is something that, at the moment, only a human will be able to do. So tools like Deep Dive are quite crucial in creating the foundational knowledge base for further digital research. But in a lot of cases, we also add those interviews which give an extra dimension and depth and understanding to, for example, a profile of an individual.
Okay, lovely. And we're not yet at the point whereby AI can dispatch humanoid investigators to go out and interview people, right?
No, not yet.
Not for a while, I think.
But you never know.
Go on, Dom.
So I was going to say, I mean, we see the challenges with AI inside Deep Dive. So obviously we're using lots of different AI techniques. We also use multiple LLMs. We don't just rely on ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. We test and test and test. And the challenges around AI is prompting is very, very difficult. You have to be very precise. You need good context. And controlling AIs not to hallucinate, not to make things up, not to make assumptions, and how it interprets data is very, very important. So while I spend all day using AI, there are lots of challenges in getting it to work just right. And this is one of the things it's taken us 2.5 years with DeepDive, is to make sure that we have the right prompts, context, processes, checks. We use adversarial AI techniques where we'll have one LLM do something and then it'll be checked by another LLM to look at any bias or anything like this, or any mistakes. And we have tricks and mechanisms at every stage of the process to make sure that what's being delivered is accurate and real and directly linked back to a source. One of the hardest things is being able to evidence a decision when you're using something like ChatGPT, because it's a probability model. It is based on lots and lots of different mathematical equations, and at the end you don't really know what it's done unless you really control it in terms of prompting and context.
Okay, lovely. Right, well, let's go to questions. Questions from the audience. Again, there's a little question mark in GoToWebinar UI. Please hit on that, send us your question, and our panelists will answer it for you. We did have one comment already, and I think, Sophia, it might be a question for you based on what you were saying a minute ago. But they're asking, at which point in the client engagement do you use DeepDive? Where does your work start? Where does DeepDive come in?
So we have used it as part of our scoping process. So as Nick mentioned, we have a few preferred proprietary databases that we go to in order to scope out the matter and sort of create a roadmap of jurisdictions, languages, individuals at play, etc., etc. So DeepDive comes in to create this sort of foundation of knowledge that then we can build upon, and it becomes very invaluable at times when clients are pressured on time and we're pressured on time. So it gives us quite a good foundation. It is also, we have also noted, especially in more complex cases that can span 2-3 weeks, running a deep dive in the middle and at the end of the research process could be quite interesting, because for some high-profile individuals, data can shift and change. For example, they have done a big deal that was recently reported on during the course of the investigation. So that means that the data set is already changing, and in doing those control checks throughout a big reporting timeline, could really assist in structuring a coherent and up-to-date reporting that is going to be useful to the end client.
Lovely, thank you for that. Dom, there's a question come in, looks like it's for you. The question is, do you have any tools available for transaction monitoring?
For transaction monitoring, so at the moment, so DeepDive's been out for 2 months, and it's still a early stage of the product, but very shortly we'll be adding monitoring, which will allow you to get alerts when any information changes about somebody, and that can be done on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. The nice thing about the way DeepDive works is we build this knowledge about this person, and then if we see a new page on the internet, a new news article, we can read it and understand if we've already told it to the customer. Is it new information? Is it something that they should be alerted about? Rather than firing off lots and lots of alerts, we can set thresholds and rules and risk appetite and all sorts of different things to control the monitoring and the alerts that you get. So you might want to know if somebody's a beneficial owner of 50 companies. I don't think you want to know if a director resigns or a secretary resigns, but if 5 directors resign from one company, you might want to know that. If there's a news article, if it's quite an advertiser rehashing a Daily Mail article, you don't want to see that. But if there's new information, so in a court case where it goes from articles about an arrest to articles about the court case and then a prosecution, and then the person being found guilty and then an appeal and the results, all of those are different aspects which get reported on, and we can deliver just the differences between each time you ask us to send you a notification.
Lovely, thank you for that, Dom. Question for the Pelican team. In which EDD scenarios do you tend to use something like DeepDive?
Sorry, when do we tend to use the EDD?
Yeah, in which it says in which EDD use case scenarios do you use DeepDive?
So look, we found it in because we've been live testing this, we found it has been extremely helpful when we've been under a bit of time pressure, and also when we've been looking at high-profile individuals. So it's provided really helpful starting points. It's provided some key findings which we've been able to corroborate with our findings as well. So certainly with high-profile people, it's provided a really good starting point. And even some of the language which is used within DeepDive, it has helped us to sort of sculpt and put together the report, and sometimes we'll be able to sort of provide a more condensed report as well. So there are lots of aspects which have come out which complement the work that we do.
Thank you, Nicholas. And I've got a question actually. What about the formatting? How do you tend to bring together all these different strands of your research, your tradecraft, the deep dive output, and your protocols?
Well, Pelican has an in-house style that we use across all of our products, in terms of formatting, in terms of language that we use, in terms of how we craft our sentences, so our clients can read and recognize our style. So what we've been doing with DeepDive specifically is cross-referencing the facts, and occasionally in bigger reports, making sure that, but using the DeepDive report as a prompt to structure our own report. For example, if it's a 60-page report, it is, and the themes are quite complex, and they span politics and media and very, very big subjects. It is quite good to have that detailed breakdown, and because as Dom has illustrated, the deep dive reporting can be broken up in very specific themes, and I think that is quite a useful prompt when addressing a much larger profile.
Yeah, and I think, sorry to just jump in there, Sophia, I think also the footnoting, your source referencing is really key. There are some other platforms which we won't name here who've gone before you, who can churn out lots of data very quickly. You've got no idea where it's come from. You've got no idea about the reliability. So to name the sources and to identify them, and Dom has shown beautifully in his demonstration, even more detail behind each source is extremely helpful. So that's so crucial for the work that we do. We have to know exactly where every piece of information that we include in our report, whether we've done our own research or deep dive has done it, we've got to know where every piece of information has come from.
I'd just like to add to that as well, is that one of the things I like about DeepDive is that we provide a complete audit trail. So if a regulator comes along in 2 years' time and asks you why you made that decision, with the deep dive sourcing, we've stored the web pages that we downloaded at the time you ran the reports, so that even if that website doesn't exist anymore, or the information has been taken down or has changed, you can show a complete audit trail right back to source of the information that you had at the time to make that decision.
Dom, you must be psychic. Somebody just asked, can the deep dive EDD report, simple or complex, be downloaded for forwarding to an auditor?
Yeah, so there's various ways we can do that. So the reports can be downloaded as PDFs, they can be copy and pasted into your own documents. The challenge there lies with the sourcing. So what we do in the reports is we list every single sort of URL, so you can click through. When things are multi-sourced, we can provide a JSON document which will show how all of the statements on the report are linked back to the paragraph on a web page, which is where we got that information from.
Lovely, thank you. So we don't have any more questions. We are pretty much at time, so perhaps if we do a couple of closing statements. Here's the contact details from the team at Pelican, should anyone wish to get in touch with them. Nicholas, Sophia, would you like to say a few closing words for us, perhaps?
Sophia, you can go first.
No, it has been a great experience in testing Deep Dive and being a part of your journey, simply because a lot of investigators in our industry have been quite worried about the role that AI and large language models will have on our industry. So it is quite reassuring to see a great investigative tool coming together and evolving every day to become better, and the knowledge base to become bigger and deeper in supporting us in what we do.
Yeah, and I just really want to echo that, and I've sort of covered my closing statement halfway through this session, and that is simply this, is that whilst Deep Dive is fantastic, it's not going to replace the human involvement in the reports that go out to clients, because of the huge expanse of information one can get, particularly with human involvement and human intelligence. But certainly this is becoming and will just only get bigger in terms of being part of the investigative process and the process that we will go through for each of our assignments. So it's great to be part of this, and at the very beginning as well.
Sophia, Nicholas, thank you very much. Dom, would you like to finish us off today?
Yeah, I'd love to. I love Deep Dive. It's been a really fascinating thing to build and to continue to build. One of the things that I find most interesting is the scale it operates on. So the fact that it can handle 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 pages about somebody, thousands and thousands of individual facts about some people. And one of the things that the challenge we face building this is data online comes in all shapes and formats and types, whether it is tables, whether it's Excel sheets, whether it's PDFs, whether it is Word documents. Our systems can take all that data from the web. But one of the things that we're working on, and which I think is going to make it really interesting, is being able to take unstructured data or customer data or data from tools that we don't have access to, which our customers do, and allow them to inject that through the system, so that at the end you have a body of knowledge with all the sources, all the structured data and unstructured data all together, which can be delivered in whatever format that you want.
Right, well, thank you very much, Sophia, Nicholas, Dom. Thank you for your expertise today. To our audience, thank you for listening in, and stay tuned. I can see some sort of podcast, something like that coming at some point in the future. But we're at time, so thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.